Hello everybody, I'm Emma Johnson, I'm the Chief Executive of the Corruption and Crime Commission. I'd like to welcome you all here today. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we meet on once was wetlands known as Gujumuli, an area for hunting and fishing that provided food for the Noongar people. We acknowledge the First Peoples who cared for this land, and we pay our respects to the elders who have passed, those present and those younger leaders emerging. Thank you for joining us for Law Week 2024. Law Week in WA is an annual celebration of the legal profession and the community it serves. The Law Society of WA organises Law Week to serve as a platform to promote public understanding of the law and its role in society, and also to place a spotlight on issues affecting access to justice in the community. The CCC's role is to investigate allegations and expose serious misconduct and corruption in the public sector. We do this to ensure the community has trust and confidence in government. CCC was established in 2004 after the Kennedy Royal Commission. So in addition to celebrating Law Week, this year the CCC celebrates 20 years of fighting corruption and maintaining integrity across the public sector. Today we have opened our doors to show you one aspect of the work that we do. You will today see an examination, which has assisted us in finding facts in a serious misconduct or unexplained wealth investigation. Hopefully after today, you will have more of an understanding of what it is the CCC does when investigating allegations of serious misconduct and what a usual examination looks like. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello. As our Chief Executive mentioned, the Commission is going to recreate for you today the drama and the detail of one of our more interesting statutory powers, the power to conduct examinations under Section 137 of the Corruption, Crime and Misconduct Act of 2003. On your seat when you arrived was a short factual scenario behind the investigation we have codenamed Operation Rock. Some points to remember today. This is not an examination in a real investigation. The government departments, people, entities and actions referred to do not exist and are not related to any individuals or entities with the same or similar name. However, the conduct covered is indicative of the type of conduct that we investigate. So the issues today that will be uncovered are very real. This is an examination of the main person of interest in the investigation, a public officer from the Department of Outdoors. His name is Mr. Shane Mellon. You can presume other public officers and non-public officers have already been examined. You can also presume that the Commission has already exercised other statutory powers. We have compelled government departments, banks and airlines to give us information and documents. We have executed a search warrant on the premises of Bigger and Better Electricals, and we have issued Mr. Shane Mellon a summons to attend for examination today. Examinations are different to trials and hearings in the Districts and Supreme Court. The rules of evidence do not apply, so you'll hear counsel assisting ask some leading questions and some non-leading questions. The Commissioner has the role of both investigator and adjudicator. So at times he will act as a judge by observing the evidence, but at other times he may ask a question or suggest that the questioning proceed in a particular way. Mr. Mellon's summons stated that he could not talk to anyone about the fact he was attending the Commission today to give evidence. That is with one exception. He could talk to his lawyer, Ms. Wilson. Ms. Wilson can attend the examination to represent her client, but she has not been told in detail what her client is to be examined about. Normally, our examinations are held in private. However, the Commissioner may decide to open an examination to the public if he considers it in the public interest. That consideration must occur by weighing the benefits of public exposure and public awareness of the misconduct against the prejudice to Mr. Mellon's reputation or privacy infringements. Ultimately, an examination is an inquisitorial process to establish facts and motivations for behaviour we suspect occurred but do not yet know. It can also be a forum to provide the witness an opportunity to explain his conduct, or an opportunity for the witness to admit that he did the wrong thing. An examination is constrained only by its scope and purpose. This can be very general in nature. Before an examination commences, the witness will be told a general scope and purpose. For the purposes of this investigation, the scope and purpose is to determine whether any public officer of the Department of Outdoors may have engaged in serious misconduct by taking advantage of their position to benefit themselves or others. The examination will now commence in the usual way with the entrance of Commissioner McKechnie. All rise.
Please be seated. Who do we have? Ms. Nelson.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is an examination continuing of Mr. Shane Mellon, and if I could ask for him to be re-sworn.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Before your examination begins, it is necessary for you to make an affirmation. Please stand. Take the card in your right hand and read the affirmation out loud.
I solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in answer to all the questions that may be asked of me by the Corruption and Crime Commission.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you. As you already know, because you have given evidence, I have appointed Ms. Nelson as counsel to assist is asking questions on my behalf. So you have legal representation?
I do.
Commissioner, I seek leave to appear for Mr. Mellon today.
Leave is granted.
Thank you. Would you prefer if I sit or stand to address you?
Whichever is most comfortable for you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Mellon is subject to a non-disclosure order and requires a variation to the order to enable him to disclose restricted matter to his treating psychologist.
Very well. What do you have to say about that, Ms. Nelson?
Commissioner, yes, Mr. Mellon has been subject to the Section 151 of the Corruption and Crime Commission non-disclosure obligation arising from his previous examination. On that occasion, you did not see fit to vary that order, and Ms. Wilson had brought this to the attention of the Commission and the investigators prior to today, and we have no objection to Mr. Mellon's order being varied so that he may speak to his psychologist.
Very well, thank you. In that case, Ms. Wilson, I will vary the notation. So you must clearly understand, Mr. Mellon, that you may speak to your psychologist, but to no one else in relation to your evidence. Of course, you may speak freely with your lawyer at any time. Are we ready to continue?
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Mellon, your full name is Shane Mellon.
Shane Winston Mellon.
And you were last examined a couple of weeks ago, and at that time you gave evidence that you were the Director of Infrastructure and Assets at the Department of Outdoors. Are you still occupying that position?
I do, yes.
And you gave evidence about your usual role, and that involved maintaining facilities that were used by school children during camps in the southwest.
That's correct.
And you have a team of officers who assist you with that task, is that so? And in performing that role, an aspect of that is maintaining the facilities so that they're fit for purpose.
That's correct.
And on the last occasion, you gave evidence that there was a particular campsite that needed to have the audio-visual equipment updated.
Yes.
You also gave evidence on the last occasion that you had a long-standing relationship with a school friend of yours, a Mr. Carl Crum.
Yes, that's right.
And Mr. Crum, you said, was the owner of a business that sells electrical goods, Bigger and Better Electrical.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to just focus my next few questions on the particular procurement of audiovisual equipment at the school campsite that we mentioned on the last time. You gave evidence last time that you attended a meeting of the department's executive on the 15th of August 2018. Do you recall giving that evidence?
Yes.
I'm going to show you some minutes of that meeting. Could I have exhibit 0030? Thank you, Madam Associate. So you can see the document is on the screen in front of you. Do you recall looking at that meeting minutes document at the last time you were examined?
Yes, I don't recall the detail of the document, but I remember we looked at it.
And you said on the last occasion that you recalled being present at a meeting on the 15th of August 2018?
Yes, that's right.
In the minutes of that meeting, perhaps if we could have the whole page visible on the screen. Thank you, Madam Associate. So down the bottom, the decision of the meeting is recorded there as you, in your role of Director of Infrastructure Assets, had to prepare and manage a request for tender for the supply of 10 electronic viewing apparatus for school camp recreation halls.
Yeah, that's correct.
And it was going to be a tender process. I understand that you were going to undertake to procure those 10 screens?
Yes, it's the standard process we use to get new supplies and equipment.
And the finalisation of the process and the award of the tender, the meeting decided had to be done by the 30th of October 2018.
That's what the document says, yeah.
And is that your recollection?
It was a while ago, can't really recall, but if that's what it says on the document, it's probably correct.
And if we could, I could just take your attention to the very last paragraph, perhaps if that could be, thank you, Madam Associate. It's imperative that the delivery date for the products is prior to 1 December 2018 in order for tax cost savings to be realised by the department.
Yep.
You recall that decision being made by the executive on that date?
Seems like a sensible decision, yeah. Yep.
Thank you. That can be taken down. On the last occasion you were examined, you agreed that you had met with your friend, your school friend, Mr. Carl Crum, on the 28th of August 2018.
Yes.
After this meeting took place with the executive.
Yeah.
So that was about 8 days after the meeting took place with the executive.
Sure.
Did you discuss the fact that you had been tasked with this tender process when you met with Mr. Crum on that occasion?
I'm usually careful about keeping my business and social life separate, so we're mates, but I can't think we would have discussed it.
Well, that's not really an answer to the question. Did you discuss it?
I can't really recall, I'm afraid. I might have mentioned it in passing, but it's not the sort of thing we would have talked about.
If you mentioned it in passing, what would you have mentioned to Mr. Crum?
Oh, as I say, I try and keep my work and social life separate. I might have said something about we need some new TVs. I can't recall.
Because Mr. Crum is in the TV business, isn't he?
He's got a wide range of products that he supplies, I understand.
And
That didn't
TVs.
answer the question either.
I think he has TVs. Yes.
You think or you know?
He He's mentioned TVs in the past. I can't say that I know exactly what he supplies, but he may well supply TVs. It wouldn't surprise me. He supplies electrical goods, we know that.
Where did you meet with Mr Crum on the 28th of August?
I see him socially throughout the year. He's been a mate of mine since we were at school together, so I can't 100% recall that specific meeting.
How often during a year period would you meet with him?
Maybe, I don't know, once a month, perhaps 12 times a year, something like that.
And this was purely a social engagement?
Yeah, we usually meet at the pub, talk about soccer. He's a big soccer fan, so.
Did you discuss with Mr Crum the delivery date for the tender, that it had to be delivered by the 1st of December?
As I say, that's not the sort of thing I would discuss. I don't recall saying that to him, no.
So is your answer that you don't recall? So you might have discussed?
I might have discussed it, but I doubt it.
I'll take you to the tender document itself now, 0047. Have you seen this document before, Mr Mellon?
That looks like a standard request for tender documents we put out. Whether I've seen this specific one before, I'm not sure.
When you say we, are you referring to yourself?
The Department of Outdoors, in my role.
I can see at the top half of the screen that your name is the
Yes.
inquiry officer nominated.
Mm.
Did you draft this request for tender document?
If I've put my name on it, I would have done, yes.
Do you recall drafting this particular request for tender?
We deal with a lot of tenders. I don't specifically remember this one, but if it's got my name on it, it's authored by me.
Was a procurement exercise for 10 high-definition TVs a usual activity that you would undertake in your role?
It's not it's hard to answer that question because we do get this sort of material, but 10 TVs is quite a high number. I don't think we'd do that often.
And the reason it had to go to a tender process was because the procurement was going to be over $250,000 in total, wasn't it, Mr.
It was a
Mellon?
high-value procurement, yeah. Yeah.
How often in a year would you do a high-value procurement of that size?
Oh, very rarely. Once, maybe not even once every year.
So this was an unusual procurement exercise for you and your team.
I'd agree with that, yeah.
Did you involve any of your team members in settling the request for tender document?
I know that we had a brainstorming activity about the drafting of that document, but I would have settled it.
What is the purpose of a request for tender document?
It's to put out to the public that this is what we need and get suppliers in to hopefully provide us with some competitive quotes so we can pick one that delivers the best value for the department.
So you said that one of the purposes is to put out a document that says what you need,
Yes.
what the department needs.
That's right.
Is it correct to say that a request for tender will detail specifications for the procurement, exactly how big the TVs needed to be, how high definition, what they needed to do, when they needed to be installed by,
Yes,
etc.?
I'm sorry, Councillor, you're right. I would say all of those things, yeah.
If we could go to the bottom of this page, you can see that it says closing time 5 p.m. on the 30th September 2018, issue date 1st of September 2018.
Yep.
Does that mean that the tender process is open between the 1st of September and 5 p.m. 30th of September?
That's my understanding of that, yeah.
So any contractor who is interested in bidding for this work would need to have submitted a tender by 5 p.m. on
They
September?
would have, yes.
And I can see there you submit it either to a tender box or to an electronic tender box.
That's the usual way that these things are done.
So documents, a reply to this request for tender could be uploaded to an electronic tender box.
Yes, that's perfectly acceptable. I think loads of departments do that.
Did you have access to the electronic tender box for this particular tender process?
I would have, because it's the tender that I authorised to be put out.
So the tender was to open then on the 1st of September. And you met with Mr. Crum, did you not, on the 28th of August?
Again, I can't recall that meeting. I may have done. We meet fairly regularly. He texts me, we catch up.
You met with him just mere days before the tender opened.
It's quite possible.
Do you recall when Bigger and Better Electrical, being Mr. Crum's business, submitted a tender in reply to the request?
No.
Its information available to the Commission suggests that they submitted a tender on the 13th of September 2018.
Okay. They've probably done that then. I'm not disputing that.
I'll just have a look at their tender form, thank you, Madam Associate, 0078. We can see this is a tender form, and there's a number there on the top right that ends in 901. And underneath that, the date, the 13th of September 2018, it's addressed to you.
Yes.
And down the bottom, the name of the tenderer is Carl's Bigger and Better Electricals.
Yep.
And we could go over to the next page, thank you. Signed by Mr. Carl Crum.
Yep.
And we could just go to the next page, thank you. Now, what does this information mean to you, Mr. Mellon, that we're looking at?
Well, it shows the unit price of the TVs, so how much each TV is going to cost, the total for 10 of them, the fees that they charge for installation, and that's it, really. It's pretty standard.
So as at the 13th of September, Carl Crum is indicating that he will supply 10 ultra-high definition TVs,
Yeah.
orange brand, at a cost of $30,000 each, plus installation, so the total procurement, should his tender be accepted, is $300,550.
Yeah.
Did you communicate with Mr. Crum at all about the price that he had submitted, Mr. Mellon?
No, I wouldn't have done. We keep these things separate, as I say.
Apart from meeting with Mr. Crum socially once a month or so, do you talk to him on the telephone?
Oh, he rings me up. We talk about soccer. Yeah, we do. Yeah.
How often, say a week period, would you talk to Mr. Crum on the phone ordinarily?
Maybe, we're not wedded to each other or anything, just a couple of times, maybe once a week. Yeah, not that often.
Did you continue that method of communication during the tender process whilst it was open between the 1st of September and the 30th of September?
Well, I don't specifically recall. I'm not going to deny that I didn't, but I wouldn't have discussed this with him.
Did he indicate to you at all that he was intending to submit a tender?
He might have said something about it. It's the sort of thing that I know his company would do, this sort of thing. It's not unusual, so he might have maybe said something that he was thinking about it, but I don't recall him saying that he was putting in or anything.
And so he said he was thinking about it, so at that stage he had not actually submitted a tender.
I couldn't say what he did.
Did you consider whether you should continue to talk with him socially during the month period that the tender was open?
Well, as I say, we keep these things separate, and he's a mate of mine. I'm not just going to cut him off because we've got a tender open. We don't talk about work.
How do I know that?
I've known Carl for, well, since we were at school together, over 30 years, Commissioner, and I can't assure you of anything other than what we talk about, but it'd be really unusual for me to say, don't talk to me for a month and then come back to me.
Was it a matter that you considered and rejected as a process, or did it not occur to you to tell Mr Crum not to contact you, or that you wouldn't contact him whilst the tender process was open?
We're both professional people. I've been in this role for 20 years. He's been in his job for a long time. Like, he would know, I believe, what I can and can't do. And so, no, we didn't have an explicit discussion, but these things are kept off the table, so to speak.
And my question was, did you consider whether you should have that conversation with him, or did it not occur to you to even consider?
It didn't
as a
occur,
possibility?
but only because we have a professional understanding of what to do in these situations.
Have you ever had a conversation with him about keeping your professional lives separate?
Yeah, I think we would have done at some point. Can't remember specifically, but probably.
Thank you, that can be taken down. I'll show you a table of what's called call-assisted data, which shows the number of telephone calls between you and Mr Crum during a period of time, 0084. Now, the number under the column direction, the number ending 789, I can tell you is subscribed to by Mr Crum. So this table shows that in the period that the tender was open, you spoke on the phone with Mr Crum on 5 occasions.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, once
You'd
a
accept
week.
that?
Once a week, yeah.
And after the tender closed, so on the 1st of October, you spoke with him for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Looks like I did.
And would you say that that's the normal pattern of communication between you?
I would say that. It's not unusual.
That was the usual frequency of contact between you and Mr Crum?
Yeah.
About 2 times a week?
Maybe slightly more than usual, but as I say, I ring him about once a week. It's not unusual.
So I ask you again, Mr Mellon, did you talk with Mr Crum about the substance or the fact of the tender during any of those calls?
No.
Definitely not?
I don't recall me saying that to him.
Is it soccer season during September 2018? Would it have been?
Oh, if you follow the EPL like we do, avid fans, yeah. And there's all the other minor leagues as well. Like, he's a real football nut.
I see. That can be taken down, thank you. I'm going to play you a telephone call, Exhibit 1709. Thank you, Madam Associate. And you'll hear the audio of the call, and a transcript of it will appear on the screen in front of you.
Okay.
Shane Mellon speaking.
Hey Shane, it's Carl. How are you, mate?
Hey Crummy, how you going, mate?
Good, mate. Good. What's the news?
Oh, mate. Oh, yeah. Look, listen. Thanks for got a rival tender in from JB Hi-Fi at a cost of about 294,000, mate. So,
Right. Yeah. How do they do that, mate? Mate, they're not going to make that date that we set.
what, the date and the tender?
Yeah, they can't make that. They're not going to get the stuff in on the boat. It's got to come from the US.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good info to have. Thanks, mate. But, still, listen, because they've got it on paper, I think you're just going to have to get your price down. Otherwise, the executive at my place, they just won't buy into the process.
Well, it's just that, look, surely you can sort something out your end there. They won't make that date. I can have a look my side, mate, but I really haven't got that much room to move. I really need to make that price.
Okay, listen,
Look, if you can, you know, smooth some things over at your end. I'll get a few boxes for you, throw in a nice little fat puppy for you.
oh, how fat's a puppy, mate?
Listen, it'd be worth your while, mate.
Alright. Yeah, given that they can't get it in on time from the US, I'll just tell them that.
Yeah, that's it. Tell them that, mate. Just harp on that.
If you can make it worth my while, mate, I'm happy to do that.
All right. Well, I'll leave it with you. See what you can do.
Alright, good on you, Crummy. Thanks, mate. I really appreciate it.
All right. See you later, mate.
See ya.
Bye, mate.
Mr. Mellon, that was you talking with Mr. Crum,
Yes.
and it was on the 29th of September at 5:06 p.m.
Yeah.
And during that call, you're discussing the tender.
Yeah.
The tender is still open.
It was.
And have you accessed the electronic tender box at this stage to see who the rival tenderers were?
I mean, sounds like I have, but I can't recall.
Well, that's not good enough. You told me earlier that you had not discussed, and yet now you've admitted you have. So try recalling.
I think I probably would have done.
Is that the usual process during an open tender?
No, but
Well, why did you do it, Mr. Mellon? Why did you go into the open tender box?
well, I was trying to get the best value for the department. You can hear me discussing that.
Well, were you trying to establish who Mr. Crum's rivals might be?
Yeah.
Because he told Mr. Crum, if we go back to page 1, thank you, Madam Associate, just on the transcript, you told Mr. Crum that the tender price for the rival company, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. mention it.
294,000?
Yeah.
And that was under Bigger and Better Electrical's tender that they'd put in on the 13th of September, wasn't it?
As I say, I was trying to get the best value for the department, so I did indicate that, yeah.
So you're trying to get the best value, so you went with the tender that was higher than this.
That tender didn't end up getting accepted, I don't think, Commissioner.
And it didn't end up getting accepted, Mr. Mellon, because Mr. Crum took your advice and put in a new tender at a lower price prior to it closing at 5 p.m.
He may have done that, yes.
Well, he did do that, didn't he, Mr. Mellon?
I think he did, yeah.
And what were you going to receive from him as a result of giving him that information?
Nothing.
Nothing. Well, if we go to page 2, thank you, on the transcript, about halfway down, he says, I'll get a few boxes for you, throw in a nice little fat puppy for you.
Yep.
What did you understand that to be referring to, Mr. Mellon?
Look, he owed me some things anyway, like I've lent him some money in the past. I think he was just trying to say that he would make that good. And with regards to the puppy, my wife and I were thinking about getting a dog, and I think he might know some breeders.
Oh, really?
I think
You
so.
want to reflect on that answer as you're under oath?
He does know breeders, Commissioner.
Mr. Mellon, isn't the reference to the puppy meaning cash?
It's to do with dogs.
It's not a fat wad of cash that he will give you?
I could see how it looked like that, but I think it's dogs.
Did he ever make good on a promise to give you a dog?
No.
Did he give you some cash?
He did.
He
But
did.
He owed me some.
So he didn't give you cash because you had given him this information about the rival tender price?
I don't think so.
And the few boxes, were they a few boxes of electrical goods from his shop that he was going to give you for free?
As I say, he owed me something. I've lent him some money in the past, so I think he was just trying to make it good from his own inventory, so he can get discounts on TVs.
What had he owed money for? Why did you lend him money?
Just sometimes when he's, down on his luck, or when I win a bet on the football, he just owed me some money. I can't remember how much. It wasn't much.
So your evidence is that in exchange for you giving him information about the rival tender price, he was going to repay a debt that he owed you.
Well, I wouldn't put it quite like that, but I can see that it may look like that, yeah.
Well, I suggest to you that there was no debt, Mr. Mellon, and this was just cash for information.
That's not my recollection.
Now, Bigger and Better Electrical were awarded the tender.
Yeah.
And if we could have a look at 0105, thank you, Madam Associate. So in a letter dated the 1st of October 2018, 2 days after the phone call, the Department of Outdoors formally informs Mr. Crum that he has been awarded the tender.
Yeah.
He was the successful tenderer.
He was. They delivered the best value for the department.
And did Mr. Crum supply the goods?
He did.
Did you ever get the repayment of the debt? The cash?
I don't remember.
Sorry?
Don't remember. I'm not sure.
Did he ever deliver to you the boxes of electrical goods?
He may have. He's given me plenty of things in the past from that he doesn't need from his store. I don't recall.
Could I have exhibit 0336? Is that you, Mr. Mellon?
Yeah.
And who was the other man?
That's Mr.
What are you loading into the back of the car there?
Like a couple of TVs. Or computer screens, I can't remember which.
And do you recall this meeting with Mr. Crum?
Yeah.
Where did it take place?
His works car park, I think.
And do you recall that it was the day after he received the letter saying he'd been the successful tenderer?
I didn't recall it was that day, but I accept that it was, if you say so.
Continue playing, thank you.
Sabe? Mas disse que essa foi a
What was in that box, Mr. Mellon?
I think it was a hairdryer that my wife had been after.
Thank you, Madam Associate.
So there will be a look at something new. Yeah, I'll give you a call this week.
What was it that Mr. Crum handed to you just then?
There was an envelope with some money in it.
How much money?
I think it was about $1,000.
$1,000?
I think so.
Why was he giving you that?
As I say, he owed me some money, so I think he was just trying to make good on that.
Was that a full repayment of the debt he owed you or a part payment?
Near enough. I don't keep an exact tally.
Keep your voice up, please.
Sorry, it was near enough. I didn't keep an exact tally of who owed what, but yeah, it probably was getting on for that.
So thinking back to the telephone call that you'd had with him, was that envelope with cash in it the fat little puppy
No.
that he was referring to?
No.
So you say that was a separate transaction, you were actually going to get a dog?
We were thinking about it at the time. I remember us thinking about it at the time.
Have you got a puppy?
No.
Thank you, that can be taken down. Were you involved in the decision with the other executive members to award the tender to Bigger and Better Electrical?
Yes.
Was there a meeting that took place?
I can't recall if there was a meeting or I authored a report and they acted on my recommendation. It was one of those.
Was Mr. Crum, you say he delivered the TVs
Yeah.
to the
As
department?
far as I'm aware, yeah, he did, yeah.
And are they in working order and they've been installed?
I haven't personally checked that, but I would have been made aware. If they weren't, I would have thought.
Were you the person who authorised payment of an invoice to Mr. Crum or to Bigger and Better Electrical for those goods?
I would have signed off on it, yeah.
Do you recall when that was
I'm sorry, I don't.
relative to the close of the tender and awarding the tender?
It would have been proximate in time, near enough at the same time.
So it would have been proximate to him being awarded the tender on the 1st of October?
Yes, as we would do with any successful contractor.
Surely you'd wait for the goods to be delivered first before paying the invoice?
Yeah, probably should have done that.
So you didn't do that on this occasion?
Now you're saying it, it's ringing a bell that we paid him first.
You paid it before you received the 10 TVs?
I think so.
That would be highly unusual, wouldn't it, Mr. Mellon?
In the cold light of day, yes, it didn't seem so at the time.
Could I have exhibit 0111? This is an invoice to the department dated the 12th of October 2018. So about 11 days after Mr. Crum has been awarded the tender, is that correct?
Yep.
And it's an invoice for $132,000.
Yeah.
And it's your recollection that you received that invoice around that date, around the 12th of October?
We would have done, yeah.
And you authorised payment straight away?
I did.
Was that because Mr. Crum was a friend of yours, Mr. Mellon?
It wasn't because of that. We were trying to get the best value for the department.
Did you disclose to the executive meeting when the tender process was discussed and it was decided to award it to Bigger and Better? Did you disclose that you had a friendship with the owner of Bigger and Better Electrical?
No.
Why not?
Just trying to get the best value for the department. I didn't particularly think it was necessary to go into our friendship. We tried to keep keep work separate, usually.
Does your department have a conflict of interest policy?
It will do.
And do you read it?
I've been in the department for 20 years. It's changed over the course of time. I can't recall the last time I read it. I would have been made aware of it at certain points.
Did the department have any regular check-up to see that you were up to date on conflict of interest?
Not that I remember engaging.
Mr. Mellon, I just want to put clearly and directly to you that you were being paid a bribe in the form of cash and electrical goods for telling Mr. Crum about the tender and the rival tender price.
I can see why you may think that, but it's just not true.
I don't have any further questions at this stage. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Council. Ms Wilson, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Commissioner. I just have one or two questions. Mr. Mellon, did the Department of Outdoors ever provide you with any training on procurement procedures?
No, they just rely on my corporate knowledge from having been in the department for so long.
What about any form of guidelines, documentation?
I've never been given any.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't have anything further.
Thank you. Well, Mr Mellon, that completes your obligation under your witness summons to give evidence here. I have to say I'm most disturbed about some of your evidence and some of the material that's been disclosed, but in due course, if I decide to report to Parliament, I will give you a full opportunity with your solicitor to make representations on any adverse matter that may be contained.
Thank you, Commissioner.
As the Commissioner mentioned, we will probably report on this investigation to Parliament. We have a mock cover sheet to show. The Commission is likely to make a finding of serious misconduct against Mr Mellon on the following three factors. Mr Mellon accepted a bribe from Mr Crum. He corruptly took advantage of his position as a procurement officer and the information he had access to as a public officer to benefit his friend, Mr Crum, and himself. And lastly, by failing to declare his friendship with Mr Crum at the start of the procurement process, has not managed the conflict of interest between his role as the manager of the tender process and his friendship. On this occasion, this has led to a corrupt relationship between a public officer and a contractor. In this investigation, public finances have been misspent because the product installed does not fit the needs of the department.
I hope you enjoyed that little scenario. It was not actually far from the truth. And congratulations, you made a very convincing sleazy public servant. Can I just explain a few things to you and questions that you have for any of us? Firstly, what you've seen is actually very true to life. The Commission will often have information that the witness may be unaware of. For instance, clearly the witness didn't know that they were under surveillance and didn't know that their telephone communications were being intercepted, which enabled the witness to, first of all, be very vague about questions which probably an honest person would know, trying to minimise. So it's always advisable to tell the truth to the Commission, because in addition to possibilities of bribes, the witness may now be facing prosecution for giving false or misleading evidence to the Commission. Now, evidence given before the Commission, an acknowledgement, for example, which wasn't forthcoming, but an acknowledgement of a bribe, is not admissible in court. The fundamental rules for a criminal case is that a person does not have to give evidence against themselves It is for the prosecution to prove the case against them. There is this exception throughout Australia with anti-corruption commissions such as this, that we can compel answers to that very question when counsel put very directly to the witness. Had the witness accepted that, that could not be used in evidence against them, subject to an exception I won't trouble you with. That's the sort of balancing, because the Commission's role is essentially an investigative role. For those of you who may have seen courts, you'll see that the Commissioner takes quite a different stance from a judge. While the Commissioner may be quiet, writing down evidence and so forth, a Commissioner may also directly intervene, usually to the annoyance of counsel, but they conceal that very well. It's a fact that had this been a genuine operation, the Commission would probably have been working on it for several months, covertly gathering evidence, for example, from bank accounts that might show the money going in. The bank accounts may confirm the witness's evidence that the money was a repayment of loans. We're not here to find misconduct. We're here to see whether there is misconduct. And quite a lot of Commission investigations will end with an opinion that there hasn't been misconduct. In fact, in about 35 minutes, a report will be tabled in Parliament that will, in fact, say there has been no misconduct, although there were misconduct risks. So it's advisable when a witness comes to give evidence that the witness knows that the Commission's lawyer may ask questions in apparent ignorance, but it's almost never in actual ignorance. We can obtain evidence from people under what we call a notice to produce, which in court would be similar to a subpoena. It's issued by the Commissioner and requires agencies and people to give information to the Commission. We can also obtain information under warrant. We can seek permission from a federal court judge to intercept electronic telephone calls. All of these are available to the Commission. The role of a lawyer acting for a client in the Commission is, again, quite different from that of a court. The lawyer may know very little, may be learning things at the same time as her client, but it's nevertheless of an important safeguard had counsel for the Commission strayed off the tracks, ventured into areas that were not covered by the scope and purpose. The lawyer could well object and might well be upheld on such an objection. The rules of evidence do not apply, so as you saw, counsel was asking a mixture of leading and non-leading questions, putting assertions such as the Commission has information that, which is all permissible in an organisation that is not required to be bound by the rules of evidence. That said, obviously an opinion of misconduct against someone has no legal significance but has huge reputational significance and may lead to prosecution. So the Commission is very cautious and requires a high standard of proof before reaching that opinion. That's a little background. Any questions, or is everybody so stunned? It would appear yes. Well, thank you all for travelling all the way over from wherever you've come to the depths of Northbridge. And again, I hope this was worthwhile. Please feel free to discuss with the members of the cast anything you would like. They're probably less intimidating than I am. Thank you.
All rise.